Welcome. I've created a series of open channel flow animations that I'd like to share with you. This animation is one in a series of videos I've made that examines how normal depth varies with several different channel or flow properties. Here we examine the role of channel slope. Before we start this animation, let's first go over the different subfigures that you see on the screen. In the upper right part of the figure, in the upper right part of the figure, you see the channel itself. The bottom of the channel is in black, the red dashed line is critical depth, and the blue line is normal depth. So we can see that as the animation is in its early stages, normal depth is much greater than critical depth. We're at subcritical flow. In the upper left part of the overall screen, you can see several different parameters. They're all plotted versus channel slope. Channel slope is the quantity that will be varying. You'll actually see the value of that quantity changing in this ticker here. As the slope basically starts small and gets steeper, we'll see how normal depth, hydraulic radius, and Froude number all change. Not surprisingly, the normal depth will decrease, so will the hydraulic radius, and I don't think I'm giving much away to say that the Froude number will increase. We'll move from subcritical to supercritical conditions. In the lower left graph, we see a plot of channel slope on the horizontal and depth on the vertical. And what will happen is we'll see different regions painted that show what kind of gradually varied flow profile would live in this depth area. So an M3 profile at very small slope is going to live at depths, say 1.5 feet and less. And M2 will go from 1.5 feet up to critical depth. And then at the largest depths, we'll have an M1 profile. We'll see as the animation evolves, we'll see that we move from subcritical to supercritical conditions. So the channel will shift from being a mild channel to a steep channel. And so we'll start to see S profiles over in this part of the graph. Finally, in the lower left, we have an energy depth or EY diagram. And there are 3 depths that are plotted. There's normal depth, alternate to the normal depth. So normal depth, the alternate to the normal depth, and the conjugate depth to whatever the normal depth is. So initially that's going to be a supercritical depth, which is off the screen, and then we'll see it start to, we'll see how the conjugate, the normal, and the alternate all basically converge at critical depth as we switch over from a mild to steep channel. Let's set this in motion for a little bit and then I'll pause it again. So you can see the channel is getting a little bit steeper, and let me stop it right about here. Okay, I've stopped it. You can see that normal depth is still slightly greater than critical depth. So our Froude number, you can see, is nudging close to 1, but it's still less than 1. So we're still subcritical. But we can see how normal depth has decreased dramatically, how the hydraulic radius has decreased dramatically, and how the Froude number is increasing. And we can see how the M1, M2, and M3 ranges of depths are changing with slope. And you can see it's as I described. You can see that the 3 different depths, normal, alternate, and conjugate, are all basically converging on critical depth as they as they prepare to flip. Let's nudge this animation forward just beyond critical depth. Okay, and right there, we've passed through critical depth. Let me pause again. So you can see that the Froude number has passed, the Froude number is now about just slightly greater than 1. You can see that it crossed 1 maybe about where my cursor is here, and that's this black vertical line here that's labeled critical slope. And you can see now the actual depth of flow is less than critical depth, so we're supercritical flow in the channel. And you can see that the depths have now flipped on the EY diagram. We now have the normal depth being below, less than the alternate to the normal depth, and the conjugate. The conjugate and the alternate are basically right on top of each other because the flow is so close to critical. We'll get some separation as we let the slope increase. So let's do that now. So we're seeing the slope get steeper and steeper, and I'm going to pause it in just a moment. Let's pause it right there. Okay, so you can see that we're having sort of diminishing returns now. As it gets steeper, the normal depth is continuing to decrease, but the rate of that decrease has slowed dramatically. So too has the hydraulic radius. The Froude number continues to creep ever more greater than 1. You can see very clearly the S1 region is basically any flow depth that's greater than critical depth. Critical depth here is where the horizontal line is. The S2 curve lives in this small region between critical depth and the actual normal depth here. You'll notice that this curved line that separates the M2 from the M1 and the S2 from the S3 is basically this same curve, which is the normal depth itself. And finally, on the EY diagram, you're starting to see the magenta emerge from the cyan. So the alternate depth is emerging from the conjugate. So the alternate depth, which is the magenta, and the blue, which is the actual depth itself, those two belong on the same vertical line. And the conjugate depth is going to be a little bit less energy. There would basically be a jump that would take place from normal depth to the conjugate depth, and there would be an energy loss associated with that. Let's let this play out just a little bit further. Actually, we'll play it through to the end. Okay, so we've reached the end of the animation, basically at a channel slope of 0.04, and you can see that the actual channel depth is the smallest we've observed. That's borne out in this graph. We've got the largest Froude number that we've observed, so we're as supercritical as we've been, and you can see a greater degree of separation between the alternate depth and the conjugate depth here, with the alternate and the actual depth, why not, on a vertical line, and the conjugate representing a small energy loss less than that. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and please let me know if you have any questions in the comment area below. Also, you can click in the description and you can watch other videos explaining other concepts from my book. Thank you very much.